Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel for climbing. So, we are going to go through the best to the worst, or just the top decks mostly, in regards to climbing, right? Going from lower ranks to higher ranks, winning games in that capacity. So, yeah. This will take into consideration, basically, how well a deck will do into not just the top tier decks, but also just kind of in general, and what is going to have like a good matchup against what people are currently playing. Like, for example, when Cool Tune came out, being good against Cool Tune meant that your deck was going to do significantly better, right? And you were going to have a better time. Right now, currently, the metagame, or at least what people are playing, are a lot of the new things, right? So Cool Tune is still being played, but we also see a lot of Elf Note, we see a lot of Exo Sister, we see a lot of Kashtira. People are trying out the new Kashtira because Fenris went back to 3. So a lot of stuff like that are things to keep in mind when talking about this. Right, these are not necessarily solely the best decks, but more specifically, best decks for climbing, for winning. So, first and foremost, Branded's honestly not great. I don't think Branded is ever worth it until we get the new support. Then it will be worth it. But as of right now, Branded just isn't a good option for climbing, or just really in general. It's just significantly weaker than most of the other decks. Doom Zed, I think, is also pretty bad. Don't play it. It is also missing a ton of new support that would make it significantly better. So overall, I don't think it's worth it. Next up, yeah, we'll talk about Dracotail. Dracotail's crazy. It's still crazy. Still really, really strong. Dracotail is tier 1. I think that there are a few decks in tier 1, and I think everything else is significantly worse. But for the most part, I think Dracotail is just really, really solid. It plays really well into a lot of different decks. The biggest issue with it, though, is the fact that it doesn't play nearly as well into a lot of the shifter-reliant decks. That being said, while those are arguably more common than they've previously been, they're not really that much more common. And a lot of those decks in particular, like Kashtira, don't necessarily play well into the established board of Dracotail, nor do they play well into the turn 0 interactions that Dracotail can put out. So there's that. For the most part, I still think that it is such a step above pretty much everything else that I don't think it's that poorly positioned. It might be a little bit worse due to just the sheer quantity of like shifter decks, but I don't think shifter is so common that it is that all of a sudden it bumps it out of that top tier spot. Next up, Elf Note. Elf Note, I think, is a solid tier 3 option. A lot of the issue that Elf Note has is mostly due to the fact that it is not the greatest going into established boards, and it doesn't have the ability to play a lot of those like turn-ending hand traps or what have you. It's fine, right? But like, it can't play shifter, it can't really play impulse, it can't play, I guess it can play like Fua and Maxi and stuff like that, so there's that, but it's not really well positioned in any real capacity. It's not great going second, but it's okay. It's not phenomenal going first, but it's okay. It kind of has turn 0, but not a ton. It's fine. It's similar in nature to where Orchist is. I'm actually going to put Orchist in that same tier. I think Orchist is a little bit better than the Elf Note. I think just being able to play into Droll a little bit more effectively, and I do mean a little bit more effectively, while also getting access to some of the more powerful engines, like the Millennium engine pairs really, really well with it, and stuff of that nature, I think makes it a little bit stronger. However, being able to play Baron makes Elf Note very strong. I don't know, they're fine. I don't think that they're really, really well positioned, mostly due to the fact that they play really heavily into Fua and Maxi and stuff like that. So I think that can be a bit of an issue. Next up, we have Exo Sister, which I think is Rogue. I think the new support helps significantly, but the deck still falters to a bunch of different things. It is advantaged by being able to play Shifter. However, a lot of the other things around Exo Sister, notably the lack of any real ability to go into or to play into an established board, as well as no real turn 0 plays, not really having the capability of playing a ton of hand traps just due to the nature of the deck itself. I think it's fine, right? The problem is that the power level of the game is just really, really high right now. And I think if Exosister, I don't know, it doesn't have like the greatest of matchups. Draco Tail is a good matchup for it. Kind of. And that's kind of it. Like, a lot of those other top tier decks are just better in almost every way and can play into those established boards from Exosister very, very well, right? So I think it's good. It's inconsistent and it does falter to a bunch of different things, right? Notably, like, because of the fact that a lot of the cards require you to utilize Exosisters or only have Exosisters, makes it very problematic because just in general, right, that can lock you pretty easily. And if anyone exploits the fact that, like, oh, you have a random spirit on your field or something of that nature, it can really hinder the deck. I don't think it's terrible, but I do think it's a clear step down from some of those other decks. Next up, we have Heka Hand. Here's the thing. I think Heka Hands has the ability to actually do very well, but you do have to get a bit lucky, right? I think it is probably the weakest of the decks I'm going to put into Rogue, but I do believe that it is still a Rogue tier deck. I think it's slightly above a lot of these other decks, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you are just stealing your opponent's monsters. So if they're playing a good deck, you're playing a good deck, and it's kind of that idea. On top of that, just the general ability to do what it does, right? Like, it ends on counter traps, which can be used to not just negate, but also steal the opponent's cards. You also have the ability to utilize very important cards like Baron, or like Zeus, or whatever it may be. Zombie Vampire is one of the core tenets of the way that this deck plays, because you can yoink your opponent's cards and then use them for Exi material for Zombie Vampire, and a bunch of stuff like that. I think for the most part, also Xeno is crazy. I don't think it's really well positioned right now, but like Xeno is a really, really powerful card. On top of that, the Kashira cards help significantly, and the fact that no one is preparing for it also helps. So there's that. I might be overhyping this because I genuinely don't think this deck is that great, but I think it's funny. And it's also very funny to put Heka Hands above Branded because, again, it's funny. And that's exactly what Heka Hands is. Next up, we have K9, which I have on here. Now, notably, I'm going to talk about just pure K9, because I do think that that deck is actually really well positioned. We do have Vanquishal K9, which I'm going to very solidly put into the best card, or the best deck in the format. And the reason for this should be self-explanatory. It is the best deck. It has turn 0 plays, multiple of them. It has the ability to make one of the most disgusting end boards very easily. It can play under pretty much every single hand trap, and it can punish hand traps as well. It's just the best pretty much regardless of every other deck in the format. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Cool. Next up, K9. Pure K9. I think this one's a solid, like, anti-meta deck, mostly due to the fact that you actually do have the ability to beat a lot of the top-tier archetypes, a lot of the top-tier strategies, and you have a really, really good matchup into a lot of those. That being said, as well, you don't necessarily have the greatest of matchups against Rogue or, like, lower-tier strategies, because you're pretty heavily reliant on the opponent trying to interact with you, and you just kind of hand-looping them for doing so. So, yeah, I think it's good, right? But it is a very, like, anti-meta style of deck, right? You're playing into the established metagame and planning to beat it. And I think that works. Next up, Cool Tune. Cool Tune's a solid tier 2. I think it's pretty solid overall, but I do think it's a clear step down, most notably from Vanquishal K9, but also Draco Tail. I think it's very strong, and I think a lot of people are calling for its head kind of prematurely. They haven't even seen it at its full power, so that's something. I think Cool Tune's good. I just don't think it's great, and I don't know. It's such a clear step down from some of the other top tier strategies that I can't really say that it's the best, especially when people are so heavily prepared for it now. I think early on you could have argued that it was a good option to climb with, but at the moment I really don't think so. I think it just gets punished by everything. It's really not that strong, right? It does have the ability to kind of just auto-win games, because there's not really anything that the opponent can do that you wouldn't be aware of, or anything of that nature. So, for the most part, I do think that it is still very, very strong, but a clear step down from, I think, the other top decks. Next up, we have Lunalight. Lunalight, I'm going to throw into tier 3. I think it's good. I think it's solid. And Liger Dancer is a powerhouse. I don't really need to say anything else. Like, it's Liger Dancer Turbo. It makes Liger Dancer. If you have the out, you do. If you don't, you die. Magistus is not a real deck. What the fuck? Magistus is not a real deck, so we're not going to talk about it because, let's be honest, it's not really a thing by itself. Theoretically, in the future, it will be, and it'll be good. So, there's that. Next up, we have Malice. Malice, I think, is still probably above Cool Tune. I don't know. These, I think, are interchangeable at the top here. At the top of tier 2. I don't know. Malice is Malice. It does Malice things. Like, it gets to play Impulse, which is really powerful. It gets to play the Radiant Typhoon cards as well, which is really powerful. It has insane combo potential. It can play under Full Loss. It can't play under Maxi, really, but it can play under Full Loss, which is something new. It has the ability to play a myriad of hand traps, which is really solid right now. Yeah, I don't really know. It's not really weak to anything. Tragically, Malice is still around. Yeah, I don't know. These two could be interchanged. I'm gonna put it. I'll put Cool Tune above it. I think they're similar. Mitsu is still very, very strong. I'm gonna put him slightly below some of the other decks. I think that's slightly worse. Mostly because I'm gonna say this way. Mostly because if you are playing Mitsu without the yummy cards, I think Mitsu is significantly worse. Even with the Ryzeal stuff, which I'm also going to put here because they're pretty much tied together right now. If you're playing Ryzeal, you're playing Mitsu. You're not necessarily playing Mitsu if you're playing... Or, sorry, you're not necessarily playing Ryzeal if you're playing Mitsu. But you are always playing Mitsurugi if you're playing Ryzeal. Hopefully that made sense. But the idea is, like, they're kind of tied together. And Mitsurugi is pretty good. Ryzeal is very strong. Add them together, they're very, very solid. I don't think they're insane by any stretch of the imagination, but they are extremely powerful overall. And, yeah, I mean, Mitsurugi can be splashed into pretty much anything, so it's similar in nature to K9 in that aspect, where you're just making a better deck, or arguably a better deck, by adding the Mitsurugi cards, because the end board becomes that much more powerful, right? But it's definitely beatable now, right? It used to not be, right? They used to make their end board with the Ryzeal stuff, or with pretty much anything, and you weren't really cracking it. Now I think it is possible to beat it, mostly due to the fact that you are less likely to see multiple Praetors, which means that you can actually interact with them a little bit more effectively. It's still very difficult, I'm not going to act like it's not, but I think it went from like a 1% chance of breaking the board to like a 10, maybe. So, those are my thoughts. Monarch, not real, can't hurt you. Radiant Typhoon, I'm going to put it down in tier 3. Yes, I'm going to put it... No, it's better than that. The thing is, Radiant Typhoon still does Radiant Typhoon things. It's boring, but it works. I don't really have anything else to say. It's boring, but it works. So, it's Radiant Typhoon. We all know how Radiant Typhoon works. You summon a whole bunch of guys off of the quick plays, and then you negate a whole bunch of cards. I still think it's really good for climbing specifically, because you get to play MST, which I think is really, really important right now, because dealing with back row is just inherently really good in a ladder style format. Just having those options available to you and being able to search it also helps a ton. I just realized there's a card or a deck on here that I don't have. I'll put it on here in a second. I have no idea what this is, by the way. You can let me know what it is. Sky Striker, I think, is a solid deck. I don't think it's crazy. In fact, I might even put it in Rogue. It's kind of bad, but you do get to play all of the bullshit spells, so I think it's good. I don't know. We all know what Sky Striker does, right? It's Sky Striker. It does Sky Striker things. It's slightly above Rogue this time, but not by a lot. White Forest exists. It does do things, technically. And the Azumina stuff is not bad. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yummy! Yummy, I think, is a solid tier 1 deck still. I still think it's absolutely worth it to play it. Mostly due to the fact that, again, it can kind of play anything, or under anything, or around anything. It doesn't really have much restrictions, because, yeah, you just get to do whatever the hell you want. You could play it with Sky Striker, you could play it with Mitsu, you could play it with Orchist, you could play it with, I guess Orchist isn't great, but, like, you could, theoretically. You could play it with Pearly. I've seen a Pearly versions of this, and I think that is what makes Yummy in particular a great option as a deck to climb with, is that you can kind of find what it is that you are good at and what kind of style of deck you want to play that is good and powerful and can help you climb. Because, oh, hey, maybe I'm significantly better at playing Pearly than I am Tri-Brigade, or than I am, what's the other version? Mitsurugi, or something of that nature, right? And that can kind of help you mitigate some of the stuff that you're seeing, right? Maybe you're seeing a whole bunch of, like, shifter decks. Okay, well, I'll play the Mitsu stuff so that I can kind of mitigate that interaction. Or maybe you're seeing a whole bunch of Droll. Okay, well, maybe I'll play the Fiendsmith variant and, you know, kind of mitigate that, right? So there's a bunch of different things that you can do that really make this deck really, really strong for a ladder event. Next up, Kashtira. Kashtira is Draw the Out Turbo. It's good. Tragically, it's pretty solid. As it turns out, giving Kashtira even more ways to play Kashtira makes the deck good. Who would have thought? What a crazy concept. Yeah, Kashtira is one of the most powerful decks of all time and has been known to be just Draw the Out Turbo. Either you have the out and you win the game, or you don't have the out and you lose the game. That's kind of it. You're just flipping coins, which means it's going to be solidly in the middle. Cool. I wanted to put Memento on here just to remind people that this deck is still good. I'm going to put it in Rogue. Actually, no, it's better than Sky Striker. Yeah, like, it's better than Sky Striker. I know so many people will probably be like, oh, actually, and they're wrong. It is just better. The problem is Memento requires you to play Memento, and you have to actually know how to play Memento. Whereas Sky Striker, you can kind of mash buttons and win the game because your spells and spells within Yu-Gi-Oh! Are really, really strong. I know Sky Striker players will disagree with me. Doesn't matter. In a ladder format, just having, like, Raigeki can be really, really good. On top of that, you also get to play the Radiant Typhoon cards and stuff like that. So, yeah. That being said, if you know how to play Memento, this deck's really, really strong. That's all. Next up, Hero, I think, is solidly in Rogue. I don't think the deck is bad, but Droplet is such a powerhouse right now, or just in general, right? Even with all of the, like, shifter decks and stuff of that nature running around, you can still do quite a lot with Hero. So I don't think it's that terrible. And yeah, Macrocosmos. I mean, we're playing Macrocosmos / shifter style decks, and they're pretty good. So making Dark Law is pretty good. That's all. As far as Magnet, this is my Magnet indicator because I didn't have a Magnet card. Magnets, I think, fine. Probably better than Kashtira, but not by much. It's another combo deck that kind of dies to a bunch of cards. There's, like, a 60 card variant that you could play that theoretically plays better into, like, Fua or Maxi or something of that nature. However, it also would require you to play 60, which is highly inconsistent, especially with the terrible, no good, very bad Magnet cards that exist that you are kind of forced to playing, especially in terms of starters. I don't know. Maybe it's good. The 60 card variant, I haven't tested it, so there's that. But overall, I don't think that this deck is fantastic. I think it's good, right? It has a significantly better time playing into established boards, mostly due to the fact that you actually have a lot of ways to start the game, or like start taking apart a board very advantageously, right? With the double circular guy, whose name I can't remember, There's just like a free guy onto the field without starting a chain. Like, that's very strong, right? Being able to dump 2 guys as well. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that makes it pretty well positioned. I don't think it's crazy, but I think it's pretty solid. And that's pretty much it for the tier list. I think, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. The Justice Hunter decks are such a tier above pretty much everything else in terms of quality that, for the most part, if you're not playing one of those, you are actively putting yourself at a disadvantage because of just the sheer power level of all of them. However, if these 3 are not being played a ton, which they aren't, the rest of the metagame is pretty diverse. I think there's a bunch of different decks that you can play, right, and you can get away with. Even as much as, like, Cool Tune seems really powerful, I think there's a ton of decks that can beat it right now, and there's a ton of decks that play well into it, and what have you, and that's pretty much it. So, cool. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much appreciated, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.